Right, so we are doing John Milton's Paradise Lost, and as I told you earlier, there are 12 books in total. We will be doing book 1 for the midterm, okay? So there are plenty of themes to analyze, some important characters, and the most important thing to note is John Milton's technique, his mastery, how he used language, structure, themes, important words, phrases, tone, harshness, forcefulness, all of that, okay? Also his characterization of Satan. That's the most important figure in this. So a little about John Milton, as you can see here. So he was born in England. He is known as a poet. He was also a civil servant. He was a polemicist. He has shown his mastery of blank verse and epic poetry, as we discussed, right? So Paradise Lost is one of the major examples of epic poetry, okay? He is a master of blank verse. So in his poem, the lines do not rhyme, okay? There is no rhyme in the end of the lines. So that is why it is called a blank verse. However, it is still written in the iambic pentameter structure, okay? The accent and not accented syllables are similar to that of the sonnets. I hope this much is clear to everyone? Okay. But the endings do not rhyme, that is why it's called the blank verse, okay? So Paradise Lost is his magnum opus, is his most important work. All right? It gained the most popularity. For this work of his, we remember him. And you can see it was published at first in 1667. Back then it was only of book 10. It consisted of book 10 books, okay? And later on he added 2 more books to it, 12 books in total. That edition was published in 1674, all right? So some of the themes, please note that. Free will, leading to first disobedience. It's written obedience here, but we know that the poem begins with the disobedience, the first disobedience, right? And free will gives humans the liberty to disobey, isn't that so? And the nature of evil dominate his work. So these are the things that are more prominent than the other themes, okay? Now moving on to the structure of Paradise Lost. It's an epic poem in 12 books, originally 10. The first publication, remember, in 1667. It consisted of 10 books. It's written in unrhymed iambic pentameter. It is a classical epic, and the conventions are invocation. Invocation, by this we mean the invocation to the muse, the heavenly muse, right? He writes about 26 lines to the muse, as the invocation to the muse, okay? And then there is in medias res, by which we mean into the middle of things. So as we know by now that Paradise Lost begins not from the beginning, but from the middle of the matter, right? Where Satan is, where he was thrown with his group of or troop of fallen angels. It starts with that. That is why in medias res, into the middle of things. So this is one of the structural elements of Paradise Lost. Also it has the elevated style of an epic poetry, right? The heroic elevated style. Also book 1 sets the cosmic battle between God and Satan. By cosmic we mean global, universal, the ultimate battle. It still persists, right? So that's the setting of the book, and we talked about the structure. Now an overview. Invocation to the heavenly muse, we know that by now. It introduces Satan and his followers. Then the book proceeds to the other matters. So book 1 basically deals with that, Satan and his followers, Satan's speech, what they plan on doing next, how they plan to regain heaven or paradise, because heaven was not built yet. Neither was hell. The place they were thrown from or thrown out of is known as paradise. All right? And they were thrown into, what is that place? Darkness or chaos, right? Okay. So Satan rallies the fallen angels. He becomes the leader now and vows revenge through corrupting humankind. We are all familiar with this matter, right? And it ends with demons constructing pandemonium, their infernal capital. Infernal means evil, devilish, satanic. Okay? So pandemonium is the palace which they build, and Satan and his followers start residing there. Okay? So the major themes, as you can see in here: rebellion against God and pride, which are faults, okay, which are sinful qualities to have according to this. Satan's defiance of divine authority, which is God, okay. Free will versus predestination. Free will, we know what that is. The creations were given the free will to obey or not to obey. And predestination, what was to happen. It was prophesied earlier, okay? And the prophecy becomes true in actuality. The tension between divine plan and choice. Also, another theme is good versus evil. You can look into the poem from that perspective too. You can evaluate and critically analyze the poem from this point of view. The moral ambiguity of Satan's heroism. Is Satan the hero of the poem, or is he not? That becomes a question, because Milton presents Satan in a grand manner, in such a grand manner that the readers at times become confused. Does Milton want us to believe that Satan is the hero, or does he want us to think otherwise? This becomes a confusion, this becomes a question, okay? So that is why the ambiguity of Satan's heroism, okay? This is another major theme. And then comes leadership and power. So manipulation and rhetoric among the fallen angels. How they manipulate the free will which they were given. Important characters throughout the poem, please note it down. Satan, he is the charismatic leader of the fallen angels. Beelzebub is Satan's closest ally, his advisor, okay? Then there are some more important characters. They are also among the fallen angels: Moloch, Chemos, Belial, Mammon. And they represent different ideologies of rebellion. Okay? And then we have God as the central force of divine authority. Now please note down some of the important line numbers which you will have to analyze later on. So we studied lines 1 to 26. We are done with this part. It has the invocation to the heavenly muse. It introduces us with the subject, with the topic of the poem. Then we have lines 84 to 124. Here we find Satan's first speech, okay, which expresses pride and defiance. All right. From lines 242 to line 270, Satan rallies Beelzebub and others. He gathers up his forces. And lastly, lines 622 to 669, how pandemonium is constructed. The poet Milton talks about that.
Will you provide this slide on our group?
As a note, I can give you a study note, maybe not the slides. Okay, so in here the council begins in the end. As we know already, the whole poem begins from the middle, right? Satan's character, this is an important thing to note, to analyze in the poem. So these are some of the characteristics. His character is full of complexity. He is a paradoxical figure. There are rarely any clarities. He is heroic, yet he is tragic because of the failure he faces, because of the punishment he is given, right? So this epic poem is not exactly a story of success. It is a story of failure, okay? Also, Satan's character embodies pride, ambition, and resilience. This is the most famous line. Satan feels this way. He believes that it is better to reign in hell than serve in heaven, okay? He won't be a servant of God. He will choose hell, but he will still become a ruler, a leader, okay? So it also represents human struggle for autonomy and identity. Moving on, Milton's style and technique. Milton uses elevated diction. He uses advanced or more expressive or more impactful words, phrases. Also elaborate syntax. We will find plenty of long sentences, okay, in this poem. Milton makes extensive use of classical and biblical allusions. He uses plenty of examples from the Bible, from the book of Genesis, throughout the poem Paradise Lost. Blank verse. Because this is in a narrative style, it mirrors or it shows, projects grandeur, grandness, okay, and moral seriousness. It also uses epic similes to magnify scale and emotion, okay, to heighten, to elevate. Now here we come on to the sample questions. These are some examples of how the questions might be. The first one is important. Is Satan a hero or a villain in book 1? So while you read the poem, try to analyze it from this perspective, okay? Make plenty of annotations. How does Milton reconcile free will with divine justice? The next one, what parallels can be drawn between Milton and his Satan? Are there any similarities between the two characters of the poet and the character created by the poet? Also, how does book 1 set the tone for the rest of the epic? We have plenty of hints throughout book 1 of what is to be in the rest of the books, okay? So focus on that too. Okay, so we are done with that. Now if someone can please